social justice isn't a new concept at all. In fact, we can trace back its origin to the Enlightenment era in the 17th and 18th century. But social justice is even more prevalent today, with signs of it increasingly in our day-to-day life. Back in the day, social justice warriors used to look like this. Nowadays, they can most commonly be found on the worst place on earth, twitter.com, looking like this.
I have studied the martial ways of the social justice warrior. Fight me in an argument if you dare. Perish under the sword of my self-righteousness.
What's up, my little cat boys and cat girls, meow? Lately, it doesn't seem like there has been a day where I didn't open Twitter to find the whole world on fire and people screaming at each other. Now, just because I'm a 2D anime fox girl discussing social subjects, that doesn't mean you'll dismiss my argument simply because I enjoy head pats, right? See, the difference between historical and modern social justice warriors lies in their approach. Martin Luther King Jr. focused on love and nonviolence, while many today prioritize anger and retribution. Remember that word, because it's going to be important later on in this video. King advocated peaceful protest and dialogue, while modern SJWs often resort to canceling and shaming dissenting voices. So let's take a deep dive at this social phenomenon that has been shaping our digital landscape, and one that has especially been prevalent into the VTuber scene. So how did social justice, which was once synonymous with something good, evolve into something much bigger, much more uncontrollable? For that, we need to understand where it comes from. Cancel culture originally stems from the Me Too movement, which aimed to address sexual assault and sexual harassment, particularly in the entertainment industry. It has since then devolved and lost its original purpose, but other influential social movements that stem from the Me Too movements were quite prevalent. We have, for example, the BLM movement, the hashtag Stop Asian Hate, the LGBTQA+ hashtag Trans Rights or Humans Right. Yes, these were big dubs for humanity. Finally, our generation was accomplishing that which many before us had tried and failed. The world was changing to fit our ideology. Out with the old and in with the new. We realized how much power we held. Those in power could be taken down. After all, we have brought them up, and so we could choose to bring them down. And while I'm all for bringing to light corporation malpractice, real criminals, or making valuable changes like how we boycotted the Oscars in 2015 for lack of diversity, cancel culture has now veered off its intended path. Enter the pitchfork mentality and online shaming. Mob mentality refers to the phenomenon where individuals in a group tend to conform to the prevailing attitudes, behaviors, or actions of a larger group. In a mob mentality, the collective behavior of the group is influenced by emotions, peer pressure, and the desire for conformity, to the point where it often results in a loss of individual critical thinking or even independent decision making.
Gaston, with all due respect.
Do you want to be next?
It silences both valid counter-arguments and nuanced opinions. And God forbid the person being cancelled dares make a good point. Think about a crowd watching a theater play. If multiple people start clapping, you might be inclined to follow suit. If people start booing though, you might as well. Negative and positive emotions are amplified in a mob mentality. The thing about pitchfork mentality is that it often stifles one person's opinion. This has been demonstrated in the Ash Confirmity Study, where participants were divided into two different groups. One, the fake participants, and two, the real participants. See, the fake participants were instructed to provide an incorrect answer to the rest of the study group. And by providing an incorrect answer, it created a situation where the real participants, who are actually the true subjects of the study, were faced with the pressure of conformity. The results showed that a significant percentage of participants conformed to the majority's incorrect answers, even though they knew the right answer. This proves that individuals often yield to the group consensus over their own personal opinion. Think about every time you've seen an outrage thread on Twitter filled with misinformation in it. How many times have you engaged with it? Most often than not, we refrain from it or adhere to it even though we know deep down that is wrong. And this brings me to my next point. Outrage is popular. In today's day and age, we love reading sensationalism stuff more than we care about the cold hard facts, or the truth even. And the spreading of this misinformation is a huge problem right now.
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what we think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Here, I'm gonna play a clip of Asmongold where I think he gives the perfect example to the scenario.
It doesn't matter how good your argument is. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how many times you rewrite the same tweet in your head. People are just going to think that, and it doesn't matter. I've always used a phrase, you build 100 bridges and you suck one dick. You're not a bridge builder, you're a dick sucker.
Well said, Asmon. Misinformation has emerged as one of the main culprits of distorted social justice narratives prevalent on social media. How many times have we been outraged about something we've seen on social media without ever checking the source? Then we, our turn, write an angry tweet about it, reporting on someone else's report. It's like a game of Arab telephone, where each successive report of an incident becomes increasingly diluted and distorted. You see how this becomes a problem? Last week, I made a video about this AI VTuber called Neuro-Sama. But the funny thing is, the first time I actually heard about her was from a good old Twitter hate thread. Yep, in that thread, people were largely propagating the notion that she was a Holocaust denier. And all of the replies sounded like most of the replies that you would see in the Twitter hate thread. Everyone agreed, they thanked the OP for making the post, and moved on with their day with this newfound knowledge that this AI VTuber that they've never watched before is a Holocaust denier. None of them even paused to question the validity of that statement. When I actually did look up the context, it was nowhere near as bad. You see, Neuro-Sama is an AI VTuber programmed to reply to everything a chat says. And you know how Twitch chat is. Twitch chat, being Twitch chat, tried to debate her into responding to some dumb questions. And of course, because she's an AI, she fell for it. The problem with misinformation and hate threads is that the claims often take a huge leap from the original quote or controversy. And the fact that people got mad at an AI, an artificial intelligence, a machine with no consciousness, is definitely a choice. This kind of mentality often evolves into character assassination. You see tons of Twitter and Reddit threads solely dedicated to insults, false accusation, assumptions, and making up personality traits about somebody we barely know. And trust me, where there is a will, there is a way. You can always talk shit about someone with just a little imagination.
Un jour, deux critiques sont sur une barque, sur le lac de Tibériade en Terre Sainte. Et soudain, le Christ apparaît. Et il commence à marcher sur l'eau. Un critique se penche alors vers l'autre et dit « T'as vu, il sait même pas nager ».
As social justice reforms have now devolved mainly into public shaming, in recent studies it's been found that most often than not, the online shaming of others is motivated not by social justice concerns, but rather by Schadenfreude.
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 Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is a form of malicious pleasure at another's misfortune. This is amplified by the fact that nowadays the public shaming in question can be done completely anonymously behind a computer screen. The other factors influencing Schadenfreude are social norms, how others' user can respond to it. In this study conducted in February 2023, it's been found that across 3 experiments, participants were presented with a fabricated news article featuring an instance of Islamophobia and given the opportunity to respond. Participants' concerns about social justice were not directly positively associated with online shaming and had few consistent indirect effects on shaming via moral outrage. Rather, justice concerns were primarily associated with shaming via participants' perception that the offender was deserving of negative consequences and their feelings of Schadenfreude regarding these consequences. Anonymity did not moderate this this process, and there was mixed evidence for the qualifying effect of social norm. Overall, the current studies point to the hedonic motive in general and Schadenfreude specifically as a key moral emotion associated with people's shaming behavior. Basically, the act of calling out others for their real or perceived transgressions provides a sense of pleasure and thus is driven by a hedonistic motive rather than a genuine concern for social inequality. Preaching about social injustice then becomes a means to boost our own sense of superiority rather than stemming from a truly altruistic nature. Think about Gundo Mirei, the VTuber who graduated recently from her agency after a baseball joke gone wrong. Sports fans in Japan complained so much and were so offended by this incident that her agency, Niji Sanji, could not afford to keep her on board. She became a liability and had to get expelled. In this scenario, those fans actually believed she should be punished, lose her livelihood, and be deplatformed. And even after she apologized, those fans were not satisfied. In fact, they wanted more. In The Count of Monte Cristo, or in movies like Old Boy or even John Wick, we love stories where the main character takes vengeance on those who wronged them. We take pleasure in their downfall, reveling in the satisfaction of seeing justice served. And while I doubt the anime PFP that keeps starting hate trains has been locked up in a prison jail by his worst enemies for 14 years, the sentiment of satisfaction stays the same. Indeed, Schadenfreude is usually linked with envy and jealousy. It's a perverse way of feeling satisfaction from seeing someone properly punished, especially if it's someone in power. In the tragic case of Hana Kimura, the wrestler that took her life because she got cyberbullied so hard by the internet, when the police finally investigated her case, they found roughly 1,200 messages sent by the same 600 accounts. They also found a man that had created over 200 accounts with the sole purpose of bullying her. When asked why, he simply responded that he wanted to get back at her for her outburst on the show. The feeling of satisfaction of putting someone back in their place portrayed by this man are a prime example of Schadenfreude. You see, by creating multiple accounts, he created multiple voices sharing the same opinion. And since the loudest voices are often the one being the most heard, and because everyone else is too afraid to stand up and speak up against what seems to be the general consensus of the crowd, these 600 accounts perpetrated the narrative and instead created a false consensus through fear and intimidation. Schadenfreude is usually often driven by a sense of resentment or even envy towards someone's achievement. Someone flaunting their wealth, their success, and even worse, their happiness. That is also what we call the tall poppy syndrome. No, not this poppy, the other poppy, the flower. The tall poppy syndrome describes a social phenomenon in which people of genuine merit are resented, attacked, cut down, or criticized because their talent or achievements elevates them above or distinguish them from their peers. Think about everyone who doesn't like something or someone just because it's popular. That definitely fits into the tall poppy syndrome. In the case of Mano Aloe, this couldn't be more true. While this talented VTuber seemed to have a brilliant career ahead of us, an accidental leak of her model during a YouTube test stream ruined her chances. And after that, she was doomed to fail before she even started. Merely 2 days after her debut, she got suspended for 2 weeks. And during those weeks, even though she had apologized, outrage against her mounted, culminating in doxing of her and her relatives, harassment, and even phone calls were made to her house. When her suspension ended, her graduation was then announced, stating that she was unable to continue her career due to physical and mental health. Most people that are getting cancelled lately are content creators. Take Ninja for instance. After shattering viewership records and achieving financial success as the most watched streamer, he begins showcasing instances of his lavish lifestyle and attempting to appeal to a broader audience. As a result, many people started to harbor resentment towards him, perceiving him as no longer authentic. A similar situation can be observed with the popular TikToker Rice Gum, who initially gained fame for being relatable, but is now viewed as disconnected from reality, constantly flaunting his wealth on social media. Now, why I'm mentioning envy and jealousy here, and I think that's the most applicable to the VTuber community, is that most people that are engaging with those content creators, watching these content, often want to be content creators themselves. Seeing people that are living their dream makes them think, how dare they behave this way? If I was in their shoes, I wouldn't do that. This sentiment was really clear to me when I studied the Curio-Coco controversy,
I, Curio-Coco, am leaving Hololight.
the Pikami controversy,
Thank you so much for past 3 years.
the Silver Veil controversy,
So much horrible, vile things, all from streaming a fucking video game.
the Mori controversy, the Vebe controversy. Heck, there's too many to name. And as problematic as some of the subjects raised there were, politics and social politics aside, I do believe that most of the outrage was due to people believing that if they were in their shoes, they would do things differently. They would do things better. That's one fine high horse you got there, sir. And in all of these controversies, there's always three groups of people. First, the pro-VTubers, the ones defending their Oshis. Two, the antis, and three, the ones that actually don't care. These divergences of opinions often become fuel to the fire of cancel culture and help escalate the problem even further. In most circumstances, those calling out the transgressions become the bulliers, and thus the oppressed becomes the oppressors. And I'd say that in most cases, the reaction to said social misconduct is often worse than the crime itself. So is social justice as effective as it used to be? What happened to the good old peaceful protests? Nowadays we expose, we dox, we swat and spread rumors about those who committed social transgressions. Deplatform them, attack their sponsors, attack their livelihood, call their landlord a bigot is living in their building. What's next? Politics and morality aside, it seems that most of the time it becomes quite ineffective in changing someone's behavior or even educating them, and most of the time the arguments become so absurd that they fail to get their point across, even sometimes to the point where it's destructive to the marginalized group that they're trying to protect. It's causing more harm to them than people from the opposition.
Hate breeds hate and it doesn't help anyone.
See, Silver Veil is right when she says it doesn't help anybody. And I'm not just saying that because she's a cute anime waifu or because I stan her or watch her content. I actually don't. I'm saying that because of cold, hard facts. In the study run in 2019 called Online Shaming and the Rights to Privacy, researchers examined the effects of online shaming on an individual's willingness to change and learn. The study found that when individuals were subjected to public shaming and humiliation online, they were more likely to become defensive, resist changing their behavior, and perceive their privacy rights as violated. This defense response limited the potential for genuine learning and growth. The research suggests that when cancel culture focuses solely on public shaming and vilification, it may hinder the opportunity for constructive dialogue, empathy, and understanding. Instead of promoting a learning environment where individuals can reflect on their behavior, gain insight, and foster change, it usually leads to defensive reactions that impede personal growth and learning. So what happened to cohabiting in a world where there is people you disagree with? Think about your college campus. There's the right-wing militant, there's the left-wingers, there's the weird improv people, there's the cheerleader squad, and then there's the jocks. I believe that this diversity of opinions and lifestyle is crucial to our education. Being exposed to different perspectives can be beneficial and broaden our understanding. But on social media, the algorithm only feeds us people with similar opinion. It becomes a sort of echo chamber where our opinion on a subject is bolstered. We are cuddled in a virtual hugbox, not hotbox.
They're there to entertain, just like the vast majority of viewers want. They want to be entertained. They don't want a virtual hug box that's not going to upset them over tiny issues.
When we finally face someone with a different opinion, our first reaction is shock. And how could it not be? After all, that's all we've ever been exposed to. So what's my opinion on all of this? Well, my opinion doesn't matter. But if you really want to know it, my main issue with nowadays social justice warriors are various. And they also come from a disillusion I've experienced with those kinds of tactics. Yes, I also used to want to change the world, and I used to be really loud about it. But as I grew up, my opinions became more nuanced, and I realized that everyone, just like me, is just trying to get by. Now I content myself with changing what's around me, helping those close to me, and doing good where I can. But then again, my opinion is irrelevant. I value independent, critical thinking in this channel, and I never want to impose my view on anybody. All I want is to challenge perceptions, and I want you guys to form your own opinion and open a discussion about it. My ideas and opinions are in a permanent state of constant evolution. That's why I never insinuate I truly know something, because I like to keep an open-mindedness. Indeed, what we've seen in history is that facts change all the time. And to wrap it up, I'll say we need more love in the world, not more hate. And don't trust anybody that says confidently that they've got all the answers. Because how could they? That person is just like you and me, except they're probably a little bit more of a idiot. Until next time.